Okay, so for the home birth practice I work for, we always have a midwife and then an assistant. So the assistant takes care of everything that is not sterile, and then the midwife with the gloves on doing the repair takes care of all the things that is sterile and remains sterile throughout the whole process. So typically what we do is we have all of our instruments that are sterilized inside cotton like cloth. So those instruments are cleaned and wrapped up properly and then sterilized in the oven at 300 degrees for 2.5 to 3 hours each time. So that cloth is then wrapped wrapped up in another cloth, so that we are able to kind of put that cloth under the patient's buttocks and then open it, and then everything inside is sterile. So at that point, the midwife will put on her sterile gloves in order not to contaminate anything, and she can open up all of her instruments and still remain sterile. We also have the packet that the paper that the gloves come in. So sometimes if we need to, like, for if the mom has like a little bit of a bleed or something like that and we need to tuck that, we can tuck that under her buttocks, and then afterwards that can just get thrown away, versus the cloth you kind of have to like clean, get the blood out, and then find a new one most likely. So we also use that. So the midwife will put on her sterile gloves. At that point, she is sterile and her environment is sterile underneath the patient's buttocks. I, as the assistant, typically open up things like this fill syringe and I pop that out. The syringe that she's going to be using to administer. So I usually open that and that falls out, or she takes it with her sterile gloves. And then same thing with the suture. I open it and it plops out onto her sterile field, or the midwife will grab it out. At that point, everything is sterile, and that's typically how we take care of a sterile field and maintain. Let me just make sure I hit on all of your topics. I mentioned that we're going to repair, short temperature, name other supplies in the sterile field, and describe how to transfer suturing instruments. Yeah, so like one of the things is the needle. If the syringe, if she runs out of anesthesia, what happens is the midwife will take off her administration syringe and leave that on her sterile field. I will have in my hand the vial of the anesthesia with the fill syringe in it. And she will take her syringe, plop it on top. We flip at the same time. She loads her syringe, we flip back, and then she takes her syringe off and puts the correct needle back on it. So that's one example of how we maintain a sterile field and that everything stays safe for the birthing person, and that nothing is contaminated during that process. Things like the vial of anesthesia does not stay on her sterile field because it's not sterile. The bottle is not sterile. So we clean the top of it before we puncture it with the fill syringe, but that is something that does not get placed onto her field. So I think those are all the things: the syringe, the gloves, the under the buttocks, the instruments, any gauze that gets placed on, it's opened up and she will take it with her hand, the sterile gauze, or I will plop it onto her sterile field to like remove clots or anything like that as she's suturing. So yeah, that's how it's done.